Welcome to the State Champs Podcast Network for edition of Kids Korner. I'm Jonathan Kidd along with Sean Baligian, who is a State Champs contributor, WJR Radio, USA Hockey, and Wayne State Football. Sean, thanks for having us today.
It's a pleasure being here, John. This is the best time of the year, the pre-regionals, firing up in just a couple days, and nothing I'd rather be chatting about right now.
All right, so today we are talking about the high school playoffs that start on Monday. We're going to do the predictions from Division III all the way up to Division I. So we're going to start in Division III. Flint Powers was considered as one of the top overall teams in the state. Your thoughts quick on Powers?
It was interesting because at the beginning of the year, as you know, I like to call some of the coaches and kind of pick their brain and see where they're at. And I had multiple coaches tell me Travis Perry has a loaded team. And you know what? They've lived up to expectations. I think when you look at their body of work, and, the one thing I always like to tell people, if you're listening to this and perhaps you're not a hockey junkie, pay no attention to Division I, II, and III. In any given year, the best team could be in Division III. The best team could be in Division II. The best team could be in Division I. And I think that Flint Powers has made a serious case for the best team in the state. I personally had them at number 3, but I think the margin of error between 1, 2, and 3 in the rankings is very small. Connor Witherspoon is a dynamic player. They're deep. Are they healthy enough? Because they've had a couple of injuries down the stretch, and he has to get some guys back. But this is a case to me, John, where when you look at their path, not only do you have a tough Saginaw Heritage team, and Heritage, I hope people don't overlook them. They're another team that's put together a tremendous body of work. But Kevin Zaschek has done a fantastic job at Forest Hill Central. He really has. The Rangers are a team, again, I like to look at body of work. Go look at who they've played this year. Go look at their overall record and who they've played. I saw them in person. They tied a pretty strong Northville team from Division I, 3 or it was 2-2, excuse me, in Chelsea for the public school showcase. That's a team to be reckoned with as well. But in the end, I still think there's too much for the Chargers, and I think that Flint Powers will definitely be at USA Hockey Arena. John, I expect them to win Division III. I really do. And
talk about the other side of the bracket in Division III. We could get the Osel. You could get an Ann Arbor Gabriel Richard. Your thoughts on who's going to be playing Powers in the state final?
I think Craig Steskowski has done a fantastic job at Warren De La Salle in his first season. People might remember he did a really good job with RU in the past, and he came over into the MIHL. Listen, when you talk about schedule, when you talk about getting ready for the playoffs, the MIHL slate, as you well know, is absolutely brutal. So not only has Coach Steskowski had to navigate that, how about this for a playoff primer? He plays Stevenson the last game of the year. And I think everybody knows how tough Stevenson is. So I think they're going to be battle-tested. I really like their chances to come out of that bracket. The other side is interesting. And you brought up Ann Arbor Gabriel Richard. I'm not sure if people know this is a team that just keeps winning hockey games. I think the streak is at 19 now off the top of my head. They just keep winning hockey games. Chelsea, Don Wright's squad, is another team that is definitely capable of making a return engagement. They lost their goaltender, Shadig. You might remember him. He was outstanding last year. But that's a really good team. So it's going to be very intriguing to see who comes out of that side. But when all is said and done, I think you and I are on the same page. I have Powers and De La Salle for the title, and the Chargers and the Pilots should be a dandy.
Oh, yeah, exactly. I have Powers and De La Salle, too, in which Powers I have them winning. Let's go to Division II. The Heartland Eagles, probably the last 4 to 5 years, has risen in the power ranks in Michigan. Your thoughts on Heartland?
Well, you know what? It's Coach Gadwin, number one, is one of the cool guys in the business. He really is. He's outstanding. I know you've dealt with him. Classy guy, and what he's put together out there in Heartland, you can't say enough about what he's been able to accomplish. They have everything. And when you look at all his good teams, and he's had a slew of them, they eventually lost to Stevenson one year. They lost to Trenton another year. I think this is his best team. I really do. And that's saying a lot when you take a look at how close they've been in the past. I think the bridesmaid, personally, becomes the bride this year. And that's no disrespect to Brother Rice, because Brother Rice has as much talent as anybody. And give credit to Coach Chaput and his staff for getting that team to play at the level that they played. But I think Heartland, size, speed, depth, they can just roll on you. I saw them have a tremendous effort against a strong Catholic Central team. I think Heartland is the team to beat. I really do. And it's, John, as we were talking about, and I don't know if you agree with this, in any given year, you could say Division I's the best, Division III's the best. I think it's Division II this year. I think between Heartland and Brother Rice, and don't overlook Grosse Pointe South. Coach McKillop has done a tremendous job there. Livonia Churchill has had a tremendous season. Props to Jason Reynolds. I've seen Coach Dave Mitchell and the Stevenson Spartans 3 out of the last 4 years end up at USA Arena, and they're playing playoff hockey right now. And I'll tell you what, Trenton is really peaking at the right time. Props to Coach Chad Clemens for getting the Trojans to play the way they have. It is just a tough meat grinder when you're talking about Division II.
With Trenton, we talked earlier about De La Salle playing in the MIHL. Would their tough schedule in the MIHL is going to help them in the playoffs? No
doubt about it. And when you take a look at whoever comes out of that side, you have to go through Trenton. So I picked Livonia Churchill. I like Livonia Churchill for a myriad of reasons. I think their top line is arguably one of the best lines in the state, and that's not an overstatement. But when you have to go down there and you have to beat Trenton in Trenton, you know better than anybody how difficult that rink can be. That's going to be a tough proposition. And I'll tell you, honestly, Trenton playing their best hockey at the right time. They have a game tonight. I don't know when this is going to air, but this is Friday morning. And they have a game tonight against Cranbrook, who in their own right is starting to put it together. But, John, you want to be playing your best this time of year. Trenton has a season-high 4-game win streak right now. That's saying a lot.
It's hard to say that the best game could be the semifinal between Brother Rice and Heartland.
Unbelievable. I think that would be absolutely can't miss hockey. And, they've played some dandies in the past. They had the many overtime game a couple years ago, as you might recall. I think these are two teams that they played already this year, and Rice had their way with them. But I think Heartland's a different team now. This is a team that really has found their groove. And listen, as I said, I wouldn't be surprised. I'm going with Heartland, but I wouldn't be surprised if Brother Rice won. If Grosse Pointe South won, and I'm not just saying this, Livonia Stevenson is playing that way again. Yeah. And you know as well as I, when you have a goalie the caliber of Will Traggy, you can go far. This team reminds me a lot of the team 2 years ago that nobody expected to get to the finals, and they eventually got to the finals before losing to Brother Rice. A hot junior goaltender and a team that is just playing tenaciously. So it's going to be interesting to see how Division II plays out.
What's the comparisons, with Traggy and Barber? Those goalies,
That's a great question. I think they're both guys that they can get in your head. That would be the best way to say it. They can get in your head. I've watched Will really take big steps this year, and Barber did as well. I think people remember Stevenson's had a slew of pretty good goalies in a row. And for Coach Mitchell to put in Barber at the point in time that he did, that was a bold move, but it turned out to be the right move. Will Traggy has been the understudy, if you will, and he has paid his dues, and he's put so much work in, and the team's kind of rallied around him. I saw them the other night against De La Salle, and after giving up a couple of quick goals, he just shut the door. It was it. Yeah. That was it. Yeah. And it's funny because it was almost like they played from the inside out, because once he gave the team a boost, everything just turned the puck the other way. So, Coach Mitchell's got his team playing that playoff hockey again. So, I have to say this one more time. Grosse Pointe South, in my opinion, John, is flying under the radar a little bit. They're flying under the radar a little bit. That's going to be a dangerous team.
All right, so let's go to Division I. Detroit Catholic Central is the 3-time defending Division I state champs. It's not their best talented team, but they could still win it this year with the way the brackets are. Do you see a potential new Division I champion this year?
It can happen. I'm going with Catholic Central, and I think the way that you just put it was very apt. This isn't a powerhouse Catholic Central team. We've seen powerhouse teams in the past, but I actually joked with Coach Cal, not bad for a down year, huh? And, I say that with my tongue firmly planted in cheek. When they decide to put the clamps on, they're just difficult to score against, and with Catholic Central, they keep coming in waves. The way the bracket is configured, it really does allow them, in my humble opinion, and I mean no disrespect against the caliber of clubs in front of them, but it allows them to walk to USA Hockey Arena. And, of course, they play in the Olympic rink right next door, so it works out well. But, I think another eventual date with Granville is looming. And Granville, Coach Brazil is one of the good guys in this business. There's no doubt about it. He's just a quality human being. He's done a quality job. But I think we're going to see another Catholic Central Granville semifinal. The other side is the intrigue, as you well know, because, I mentioned this earlier. Andy and Cranbrook, they got it going now. They're healthy. They haven't been healthy all year. And I talked to Scott Locke, and, he told me, hey, we hope to get some guys back. And you're already seeing some guys back. And they're going to be dangerous. And they're going to be angry, too, because they're not used to losing the way that they have this year. Brighton, we were talking about Brighton before we went on the air. They just keep getting it done. And when you talk about schedule, that's not an MIHL team. Take a look at their schedule. They play everybody. I think you and I share an affinity for Northville. I think Coach Robert has done a tremendous job this year. And the one thing that people have said about Northville, I can't tell you how many times I heard this, John. People say, well, yeah, they got Miller. They're fine goaltender. And I was like, no, they're more than Miller. I think Jack Sargent on defense is phenomenal. Their top line has been outstanding. And you know what it is? They got dirty. Mm-hmm. They're getting gritty. They're driving in that. They're doing the little things. Their captain, Aya Frady, is a kid that's just all heart. I like that team a lot. I really like the Northville Mustangs.
Going back to Cranbrook, what was the decision for them to go to Division I? Because for the longest time, they were Division III. They're always going to stay in Division III. So what was the reasons behind them going to Division I?
Well, as you remember, it was funny how it happened. I think it was day 2 of the tournament last year. I think it was day 2 when Division III plays in the morning and Division I plays in the evening, so the Friday games, where there was kind of a murmur that went around the arena that, hey, we're hearing Cranbrook's going to go to Division I. We're hearing Cranbrook's going to go to Division I. And, it was one of those things where you're like, yeah, you heard it before, but I think it's great for hockey. John, I do. Yeah. I think it's fantastic. And that's no disrespect because, as I said, even a strong Cranbrook this year might have a tough time in Division III with the caliber of teams. Yep. And, we talked about some of them. But this was a down year for Cranbrook in the regard that, they had a lot of injury this year. And I don't want one person listening to think that, well, this is what happens when Cranbrook moves to Division I. No, this was going to happen anyway because they had a lot of injury. Heck of a lot of talent there, and they had a little chip on their shoulder, I think, going into the playoffs. Orchard Lake St. Mary's is another team. I think you picked them, if I'm not mistaken.
I have Orchard Lake over CC.
They are Coach Klanow is really got the guys going. They have some big wins against, pick teams, anybody. That's another team to be reckoned with. I think that is going to be the final. Orchard Lake St. Mary's and Catholic Central, the all MIHL final. And that is going to be a game. Get a ticket. That's going to be a dandy, know. Catholic Central's had their way with them this year, but I think Orchard Lake is playing on a different level right now, so I think that'll be a fantastic game.
With Cranbrook going to 1, you have teams moving to 2. Do you feel that teams benefit moving up and some teams moving down to have a shot of winning?
That's a great question because I think, John, it might depend on the year. It might depend on the year. This year, there might be a couple teams in Division II going, man, I wish I was in Division I. Because of the strength of Division II. Next year it might be the opposite. But you're right. You have to wonder if there's going to be some more musical chairs going on in the future. If teams are going to think, I might jump up to Division I, or I might jump up to Division II, whatever the case may be. Because we've seen a slew of teams in the last 4 or 5 years jump one way or the other. So that's a great question. I'm really intrigued to gaze into the crystal ball and see how that might play itself out.
Yeah, because we've seen Trenton's technically a Division III team playing in Division II. You have teams like Wyandotte Roosevelt going from 2 to 3. So it just depends on better chance to winning in the playoffs. That's personally my feel, because I know teams in Downriver, they move down because they know if they play Trenton, their season might end.
Sure. Yeah, Coach Quint, they won that title, the Division II title in 2011. Saginaw Heritage was in Division II in 2013. So you've seen some jockeying and everything. I'm going to be intrigued to see how it plays out. But, I'll go all the way back to the beginning of our conversation. You don't know from year to year. You really don't. I mean, look up north, and I certainly don't want to disrespect the teams up north. I saw Hancock play last year. I told anybody to listen, I thought they'd win the championship, and they eventually did. They're strong again. Calumet, to me, I think Calumet is a team that could knock off anybody in Division III. We talk about Powers and we talk about De La Salle. No doubt in my mind, I think Calumet could win. I mean, here's a team that started, I believe they were 0-4, and all they've done is win. I think they're like 18-2-1 or something like that the rest of the way. I don't have the exact numbers in front of me, but they've been on fire. So, Marquette is a team that I expect them to be in the Division II semifinals. I really do. I think Marquette's going to come out of that bracket. So it's interesting. Even in the UP, you have Escanaba was in Division II. Marquette was in Division II. Then you have, Houghton and Hancock and Calumet over there. So, it's going to be fun to see, I guess when the musical chairs ends.
Yeah, exactly. I know this has been a hot button issue in Michigan high school hockey. Do you feel they need to reseed the playoffs?
Yes, 100%. And this is no disrespect to the way that they do things, because I'm going to say it again. It's a fantastic tournament. It really is. It's a fantastic tournament. I think, unfortunately, what happens is the way it is right now. Here, I'll stay in the UP. You have a chance where two darn good teams like Hancock and Calumet could knock each off like that.
Yep.
Knock each other off like that. And listen, it's a grind. I'm never going to disrespect any team. If you make your way through the tournament and you get to USA, you earned your way there. There's no doubt about it. But I think for me, as somebody who likes to tell people, not only through this medium, but via social media, via television appearances, whether it be with you guys or Fox 2, the high school hockey product is darn good. And we're moving guys on now, and we're moving guys not only to the USHL, but guys on to college, et cetera, et cetera. I wish we could figure out a way when you have your tournament at USA Hockey Arena. What you're saying to everybody is, this is the best we have to offer. This is the best of the best. I wish we could configure a way where, say, for example, Heritage and Powers don't have to play each other early. Forest Hills Central and Powers don't have to play each other early. Stevenson Heartland, they've played some dandies in the past. Grosse Pointe South and Rice, I believe that's the regional final. It would be awesome if we could find a way to let the best play the best, And again, I don't mean any disrespect to anybody from anywhere, but I think when you see some of these matchups, even on the west side of the state, last year, Grand Rapids Catholic Central and Forest Hills Central had to play in a regional. But I'm sorry, there's something wrong with that. Those are two of the best teams in Division III, and you have to play that early. I think there's something wrong with that.
Yeah, especially the one year, remember in 2008 when Northville beat Detroit Catholic Central in the first game of the playoffs, double overtime game. I feel that in hockey, like, the best team should be at CompuWorks.
I agree with you, because we're all trying to build it. We are. We're trying to build it. And hockey fans, we're crazy. We're going to go get our hockey from anywhere else. But, there are a group of hockey fans out there that, in my humble opinion, I don't think they realize how good the caliber is yet. I really don't. And, so with that in mind, I think you should do everything you can to try to get the best teams there. I don't think there's anything wrong with reseeding after the pre's. I don't think there's anything wrong with that, but I'm not in charge.
Yeah, no, and it's like we notice with these teams coming down for the showcase, the travel's not going to be the issue. I think Livonia, Stevenson, and Grand Rapids, Forest Hills Central, throw that like potential playoff preview.
Sure.
You can meet in Lansing.
Nothing wrong with that.
Nothing wrong with that. They're both an hour away. They can do it. So
I feel sorry, especially when you look at those teams in the UP. Those are darn good teams, and you take a look. Houghton's done such a great job for so many years. Coach Markham, and as I mentioned, Coach Rollo, and Escanaba, and so many of these teams, they have to knock each other off. And I think it's fun to watch the teams from the different part of the states, and quite frankly, a lot of times different styles, get together and have that opportunity. But when so many of these big, top-ranked teams are facing each other early in a tournament, it's kind of counterproductive.
Yep.
I don't mean disrespect, but I'm just a big fan of letting this game and letting this product that is high school hockey speak for itself.
Yep.
Where guys like you and I don't have to talk about its greatness, you can watch its greatness. And with that being said, I'd love an idea of reseeding. Yes,
exactly. A few years ago, a couple coaches were proposing the public-private tournament. Do you feel like that controversy is now dead?
I do. It was funny. You and I actually did a story about it 2-3 years ago where we got both sides of the story. We talked to then head coach Todd Johnson from Catholic Central and then, of course, head coach of Novi, Todd Krieger, and we got some thoughts from some other coaches and everything. I think it's over. And, John, I think it should be over.
Yep, it should be.
I really do. It's we are at a position right now where, listen, any team could go win Division One. Any team could go. Look, if you put a gun to my head and said, who are the two favorites in Division One? I would say Catholic Central and Orchard Lake St. Mary's. Could Northville? Yeah, Northville could. I think Nick Field's done a good job with Lake Orion. That's another team that deserves mention. Division Two, Grosse Pointe South, Heartland, Brother Rice, Livonia Stevenson, Livonia Churchill, Trenton. Well, there's only one private in that mix. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
So, I mean, that speaks a lot. And Division Three, you got Flint Powers Catholic, you got De La Salle, but I think at the same time you got Forest Hill Central, and you got a Calumet, and you got the defending champion from Hancock. So I think it's over. I think there's some coaches that are going to hear this and probably yell at me and probably yell at you too. But I think that's over. I think that's good for the game. It's good for the game.
And I feel like if you're a public school and you beat a private school in a state championship, that means 10 times more than beating just a regular public school. That's why we saw when Brighton beat CC a few years ago. That place was rocking.
Oh, it's one of the best. Oh, John, I tell that story all the time. My old boss, who now works in Carolina, Mike Vellucci, walked up to me and he goes, "Is it always like this?" And I went, "No, it's not." He had to shut the doors.
Yep.
We couldn't let people in. He was also the rink manager there for all intents and purposes. He had to shut the doors. We couldn't let other people in. And that atmosphere, it was shaking. And I couldn't agree with you more. There, from the fan bases to the kids on the ice, there's that oomph. We beat that private school. We beat that private school. And that's a pretty cool thing to have.
When you had CC Brighton, CC Howell, those were the best crowds.
Yep.
At USA Hockey Arena. Yes, when you get CC in a state final, you will going to get a big crowd. But if you add schools that are right by CC, they're going to come. And then if they beat CC or another private school like Novi did, the Orchard Lake St. Mary's, who, what we're talking about here, the public versus private, it means a lot more. I personally believe they take a lot more. Even when Northville beat CC in 08, even though they ended up losing later in the playoffs, they can go on and say, we did beat CC that year.
No question about it. You know what one sticks out to me as well, and we made a brief reference to it earlier, the 2011 final between Wyandotte Roosevelt and Brother Rice. What a fantastic game. If you remember, that's when Roosevelt had that big line, Gerald Mayhew now doing darn good things up at Ferris. That was another great atmosphere. It was a tremendous atmosphere, and you have the fans, the student sections on opposite side of the ice, and the volleying of chants towards one another. And I'll give the kids credit. The kids that go there usually are on their best behavior, and the schools total props. They bring their principals, they bring athletic directors to help ensure that and everything. But there is something different in that building, John, when you have a game like that. There really is.
Yep. And finally, one last nice little debate. People claim that the KLAA is the toughest hockey conference. Some people think it's the MIHL. Personally, what you think is the toughest hockey conference in the state of Michigan?
It's a year-to-year thing. I don't think there's any doubt about it. It's a year-to-year thing. This year, it's the KLAA. This year, I'd be interested. I'm going to ask some of the MIHL coaches. I haven't thought about that, so it's a great question on your part. I'm going to ask some of the MIHL coaches what they think, because I think this year it's the KLAA, and I'll tell you why. You have obviously Heartland. You have a strong Stevenson. You have a strong Churchill. You have Brighton, who is Brighton. You have a strong Northville. I think Northville really took a step back up in the right direction. Now, conversely, in the MIHL, CC, I mean, enough said there. UAD is a team that more often than not can beat you on any given night. A strong Orchard Lake. Trenton's putting it together. De La Salle. You can't, and obviously Cranbrook. More often than not, I'm going to tell you the MIHL, but this year, and I might get some flack for this, I think it's the KLAA. Okay. You? Yeah, I'm intrigued.
I think it's the KLAA. Yeah,
okay.
I think. Yeah, so we'll see in a couple weeks.
Yep, no doubt about it.
Well, Sean, thank you very much for joining me here on Kids Corner. We'll talk again maybe in a few weeks about a hockey recap of the finals.
Always a pleasure, my friend. Anytime.